Hi, and welcome to Asteria's Convos, where we are community, building the future. I'm your host, Asteria Elzea, hosting from land currently known as Los Angeles that has been tended for thousands of years by the Tongva and Chumash peoples. I owe everything I am to lands in the traditional territories of the Sauk and Fox nations. I acknowledge these ancestral tenders as a truth practice and reminder of the violence in our shared history, which has privileged myself and my farmer ancestors. Other identities I lead with are white, gender nonconforming, bisexual, and polyamorous. I'm newly discovered neurodivergent. I have CPTSD, severe generalized anxiety, and am chronically ill with Ehlers-Danlos. I've trained in connection and community building with Desiree Attaway, Beautiful You Coaching Academy, and in Carmen Spaniola's attachment-based, trauma-informed facilitation method. I have a work history in special events and as a stagehand. Plus, I'm a certified data analyst and practicing witch. I hope to explore all these topics and more on Asteria's Convos. So here we go! Welcome to Asteria's Convos, where we're community building the future. The format of the show is that I'm going to ask our guests 6 questions, and we're going to have a conversation around them. So we're going to start with, who are you and what identities do you lead with? And I'm going to light a candle for our session.
Sounds great. Lighting a candle is always just a nice place to start.
Yeah.
But hi, so excited to be here. So
Hi.
thank you for having me. I am Aurora Culver. I also go by Rory. I go by she, her, they, them. And identities I lead with, I will say it's kind of dependent on the circles I'm in.
Yeah.
But things that usually come up no matter where I'm at. I'm a storyteller. I am female. I am a partner and wife, as well as a mother, a director. That kind of ties into my storytelling. I am a Christian. I deal with ADHD, and I pride myself in being a community builder.
Yeah. Awesome. We love all those identities, of course. And Aurora, what would you say is your work in the world?
The funny thing is, I started writing on this and just kind of thinking about it, and then looked at the next question and realized there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, totally. There can be.
Yeah, we can be. So a lot of what I'm doing right now is primarily my main thing is being a stay-at-home mom. But that's not all I do. That just does kind of
Yeah,
determine where my time is spent.
it takes a lot of
So
time.
it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. And like the only time I can go, oh yeah, I can dedicate the full capacity of my brain on something other than that is if my husband is on point with the little one or she's unconscious because she's sleeping. So, but yeah, the work I do directing for theater and film are primarily my biggest loves, the things I love doing the most. It ties very much to my storytelling. I don't have as much time for them as I used to dedicate to them, but I do still have projects that I am working on. Just pre-production tends to be a lot longer. Right now, I'm working on writing my first novel. So, the big work that is my concentration outside of raising my little one is being an author. Followed right behind that is being a developmental editor. I am a editor for my friends' romance books. So, if anyone needs any romance, cozy romance recommendations. I've got a lot, and it's very fun and crazy to see my name in the credits for this book, for multiple books.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah. And then I am a TTRPG actual play performer, so tabletop role playing games. I have an ongoing series that I'm a part of and have been a part of since March, April, and that is still ongoing. I have a couple other ones that I've since joined, a couple one-shot ones. I've run a few games in that same thing. Most of these are performed on Twitch.
Yeah.
They're a lot of fun. They're wild and they're crazy. And sometimes, the people watching can donate money to completely mess with the story and the characters, which is wild. So it's a lot of improv and knowing the role playing game that you're doing and in general kind of being a little bit on as a character in some capacity. Yeah, a lot of fun. It's crazy. And then acting, I'm currently growing my own streaming career as a body double and coworker. There's not a lot of that on Twitch, so just kind of trying to create that for the other people that I do the role playing with. A lot of them talk about how they want to spend time on Twitch building their community, but have a hard time actually getting their work done. So that's saw a need and I'm trying to fill it.
Wow,
uh,
that's really cool.
Thanks. I'm still working on a lot of the tech stuff. So there's still a lot of learning to go. I kind of go with every time I stream, I learn something new and I celebrate those wins because it's a very steep learning curve. It's a lot easier when you're just jumping into somebody else's stream because they're dealing with all the bulk of the tech stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then I'm also occasionally just, crew for other people's theater and film projects. So
Wow.
that's the work I do. It's a lot of creative stuff. I'm really blessed in the fact that right now we're financially in a place that I can still be pursuing what I call my artist residency in place. While being a stay-at-home mom, I'm not going anywhere for a little vacation. It's just fitting in all the different types of creative work that I do. And I will say it is really hard to not feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. I'm not furthering my career as fast or as hard as some of the other people I know and work with. But at the same time, it's like reminding myself, okay, my kid, the age that she's at right now, this is for a short time. I'm not going to always have her around me 24/7. So just kind of finding the joys and the wins in that and not beating myself up too much about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, like, don't sell yourself short because you're doing like a lot of projects. You're raising a kid, and just to reflect this back to you, also doing the D&D streams, the streaming yourself as a body double, which is so brilliant, and you should definitely drop those streams in the Asteria's Rest Discord.
Will do.
Because it would help out so many people. And then the novel editing and the directing and the acting and the pre-production for your other projects, like you're still doing a lot on top of raising a kid, which I know personally you're doing super well.
Mm.
So how are you building communities around those projects? Because those are projects that are all really, really like rely on the community around them to get going.
Yeah. Some Well, I'll definitely say that the interesting thing is about the time period that we're in and technology is that I have community both in person and online. I feel
Hmm.
like, initially when AIM chat rooms were a thing, it was a very different kind of community, though I was definitely a part of that and a lot of storytelling ones in there too.
Me too.
Um, but building community now, I think right now the hardest is trying to balance both of those. I love participating in an online community. I don't feel like I'm a content creator as much as I am a presence online. I will say that the 2016 election was definitely a time that really put that to the test just because I was so aware of just how everybody was doing and just trying to be present for so many people, not even
Hmm.
necessarily thinking of my own emotions or responses to what was going on as much as it was just hearing the waves of my community at that time.
Yeah.
So now it's trying to how am I building the community? Hmm. I'll talk a little bit about online and then I'll go to in person. I think for the
Okay.
most part again, it's just the being present and really listening. I'm really grateful for Discord and for a lot of these online groups that I'm a part of, Instagram as well, just because I can really be checking in with my friends, with the people that some of them I've never even met. They're in completely different countries, and just being able to be a presence. And I've kind of feel like I've fallen into a support role for content creators. And I think a part of it is just I'm very aware of how lonely things can be when you are in a leading position and don't necessarily have the support behind you.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So I find a lot of the time that, most of my stuff is more engaging with other people that are already putting the things out there as opposed to, you know, trying to put new stuff out just for views. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and engaging with other people and their communities is a great way to build more community around your projects.
it's true. It is true.
And I'm
Um,
also interested in how, well, I guess this might be in your more in-person stuff you were going to talk about, but
yeah.
like, I know you're building great community around being a mom. And how have you
Yes.
found that? Because I know it's hard for people our
Oh my
age in
God.
LA.
It is so hard. I will talk a little bit about what I have done, what I'm currently doing, and kind of like what I foresee doing.
Okay, cool.
Um, so past stuff. So I'm an older mom.
Hmm.
I had what's called a geriatric pregnancy, one of the worst medical terms in existence. And so I've had many years of watching other people get ready to have kids, having their kids, raising their kids, and I've seen so many people struggle. There's a big thing of what people kind of quietly have termed Instagram grandparents,
Hmm.
where instead of having a lot of additional care from family members, the family members are more there for the picture, the opportunity to say they got to see the grandkid or niece or nephew, but then kind of hand the kid back off when stuff needs to be done. So not necessarily as present as what previous generations may have expressed that they had or actually had. And part of it, a lot of us have moved further and further away from our families,
Yeah.
from the people that we kind of innately feel, oh, if you're related by blood, you have to extend your circle of care. Whether that's true or not, that's a different conversation. So, and I don't have any immediate family in my city.
Hmm.
So it was very important for me when we found out that we were pregnant to really talk about that with my friends. I had a lot of conversations with my friends who do not have kids or aren't necessarily planning on having kids, just the hey, here's what life's going to be like when we meet up in the future. And just kind of making myself available for questions and having those conversations with people and trying to like build up expectations. I've had some people where it's still kind of a struggle for them knowing that I tend to be very like, hey, I'm here to spend time with somebody one on one and my attention's on them.
Yeah.
And just really being, hey, when the kid comes, you cannot have 100% my attention when we're all meeting up together because I'm trying to keep my kid alive
Yeah.
and
I think
safe.
that's fair.
But it's also it's hard, right? Like if you've had a friendship with somebody and their conversation has to be splitting attention at the same time. It's
Hmm.
one thing if like your friend's being obnoxious on the phone while they're having a conversation with you, which I mean, I've done. Everybody's done in some capacity. But, another where it's like I cannot put child down like a phone and turn it off.
Right.
And just like saying like, "Hey, if you want to be in my community, if you want to be a part of my life," which like it's an open invite. Yes, please be here. It's kind of on the other person to also kind of step it up. And I've had some people that have been absolutely amazing, whether you want to include it in the recording or not. You're one of those people. Um,
Thanks.
and then I've had some people who've like really struggled and our ability to meet up has kind of degraded. And that's it's okay. It's not the end of the world kind of thing. It's just that's kind of what it is. But again, trying to kind of manage expectations with other people was very important to me for that building community. Not losing relationships and connections with people who just because they don't have kids, because I personally don't think that that's sustainable. Just surrounding yourself with people who are in the exact same life position as you kind of tends to mean that everyone's too exhausted to help each other and be community.
Oh, yeah.
we need,
That makes
yeah, we
sense
need,
to me.
yeah, we need multi-generational community, whether it's blood related or not. We need people in different stages of life, different economic levels, different, beliefs, which is hard. I mean, that's probably a conversation that's a little bit longer, but even that can sometimes be really hard because we want to make sure we're all on the same page of like, hey, are we all respecting each other's humanity and on the same page for like caring for each other, not with the expectation of, oh, if I do this for you, you are going to do this for me. But like, there still kind of needs to be some level of that. It's a very weird mental balance and
Yeah.
probably too much rambling right there.
I mean, there
Um,
absolutely needs to be like reciprocity in your relationships. And that
but there
doesn't need to
also,
be transaction, like,
yeah,
here's this, and then that means I get this in
yeah.
return. But
It's
like,
that it's that weird balance of knowing also who a person is, where they're at, and what they're capable of giving, and seeing them for who they actually are, as opposed
right,
to, well, I know I can give this much, therefore shouldn't they be also able to give this much? And an awareness of, oh, if somebody isn't, giving that care to me, is there somebody else they are? That's a big one because if you're in a community, sometimes like I might be able to help somebody that needs somebody to talk to at, you know, 9 p.m. But as soon as like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. rolls around, which used to be when I'd be like very much available. If you need somebody to talk, I'd have to now be like, okay, you need to find someone else to talk to take care of, or connect with if you need somebody or I can't drive down to see you in person. So I'm going to trust that you're going to reach out to the other people and maybe just kind of like help point people's eyes that direction. And on that flip side, maybe don't live near me and maybe they can't, reciprocate that care back to me. But being aware of like, oh, but they are to other people in their circle where they're at.
yeah,
Um, yeah. But yeah, so other than that, after having a kid, immediately it was very I think the starkest realization I had was how anything I had ever offered to my friends who had kids when I, was offering, but not necessarily a lot kind of thing, and realizing that what I was offering was so few and far between of what is needed,
sure.
and being so aware of how few of mutual friends were offering similar kind of thing.
Okay. What's an example of that? Like a hard example?
Oh man. Okay, so I had a friend. I will talk somebody else's my offering of help to somebody who she had her first boy, and he, whether it was colic or something else, he was very much if he was conscious, he was crying.
Okay.
And to the point where my friend felt so guilty and terrible inviting other people to come and say hi, even though she needed company or an extra pair of hands, because there was no guarantee her kid wouldn't be crying incessantly the entire time.
Right.
And that is a really hard thing for somebody to invite someone into that. And it's a difficult thing for people to willingly go like, "Oh, I can handle that."
Yeah.
Um, but I remember, you know, finally reaching out, talking with her and getting that out of her of just like, "Oh, this is why I haven't really had anybody over." And I was like, I'm free. I can come over and I can handle that."
Yeah.
So I did. I was there for, quite a few hours. And yeah, he really didn't stop crying the entire time. Like can confirm. Like maybe like for a second cuz something new was happening, but that was just kind of how he was.
Hmm.
And but like it didn't bother me per se. I was very much like, okay, like I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to help out. I'm going to go, hold him moving around the room so she can go take a shower or whatever she needed to do. And then after having a kid, realizing like even though I was like, "Oh, okay, she's having to deal with that 24/7." Having a kid and realizing just how much that meant.
Right.
That like I was a rarity outside of the immediate grandparents for coming over, as opposed to like, oh, little bits here and there of somebody coming over for like a couple hours. I feel like as a society as a whole, we very much have lost the skill of what that looks like, what that means. But yeah, just kind of that realization as a new mom of just how much additional help and care is needed, and the idea that two parents can do it all, taking care of
Hmm.
a kid with just the two of them is kind of ridiculous. I remember because I was playing D&D online at the time, we did this thing where we were dividing up the watch for the night so that all of our characters would still get 8 hours rest to be in the game fully rested.
Sure.
And we had to split that between at least 3 of us. And just the realization that, oh my gosh, if we had one other adult helping take care of our newborn baby, we would all be fully rested. And that was just
Yeah.
like mind blowing of just like, oh, we could be taking care of the child and thriving instead of like, sleep deprived.
Right.
Um,
I know
yeah,
you
but
read
now,
a lot of books around when your kid was
yeah.
born about community and how it could be different around raising children.
Oh my gosh, so many books. Can I remember them all? Nurtured was great. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to get you book names later. There was one that I'm going to be really sad I cannot. I think it's called The Fourth Trimester. The
Okay.
Fourth Trimester, and then there's another one that's very much it's about the fourth trimester, but it's really talking about how the thing the new mother needs the most is to
Hmm.
be mothered by
Oh,
multiple people in those first 3 to 4 months after the kid is born, because if the mom is not being refueled
sure.
with love and care and is instead having to just pour it out with none of it being, circled back into her. It's it's a lot. It's hard. I think that's a huge part of why so many women deal with postpartum depression is the isolation and the lack of community care more than anything else.
Yeah,
Y-
absolutely.
yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of ideas I got from that book, and the other one that's completely blanking my mind that was very much about like, hey, society today does not do what cultures of the past would do, where you had, multiple women basically move in and take care of you and feed you and wrap your feet in these things and give you massages and stuff like that while you're also, nursing this newborn baby. So here's ways that you can kind of get current society to kind of, work for you as much as possible, but also letting go of a lot of expectations of what you think you can or need to do, and how to ask for help. That was a big part of it. I know right now, just to kind of help circle back to the building community now, my big thing is very much connecting moms, but also just families in general with small meetups and events.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that just drives me crazy is how, in order to be a mom or a dad and have community and connection, you have to pay for it. The
Oh,
bulk, like if you think about it, like, oh, I'm going to go take my kid to a mommy and me class, you have to pay
yeah.
for it. You want to go do some kind of activity that's stroller based for your kid with other new parents, you have to pay for it. Even, getting a doula or a midwife, you have to pay for it. Doulas are something that used to be like the community just cared for the doula, and the doula just offered their services to the community. But that's not something we do anymore. That is 100% a privilege to be able to have. The state of
Right.
California and certain companies have only just started in like the last 4 years going, oh, hey, doulas are important and we should be providing them. I think within like the last 4 years, Medi-Cal officially approved for having doulas covered by health insurance.
Well, that's good
But yeah,
news, but
so good,
also
but also
it's
sad.
sad.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it's wild. But yeah, so my big thing is, really just reaching out to those moms, families,
mhm.
trying to do things with, dads and partners in general, not just moms and kids, and making the focus very much what can we do for free? What is the community around us already offering? So sometimes that's taking advantage of the library, going to parks, what community events and facilities are already around and provided for, and just really leaning into them. One, because the numbers are going to help those events keep continuing.
Yes.
And two, because, we should be able to exist in the space for free. So that's big, kind of bigger, broader, and future things.
Mhm.
Uh, I live in an apartment complex with
Sure.
a grounds that are not being cared for by the current owners, and getting ready to grow a kind of little mini community garden, very much not with approval, but just kind of like with all the other neighbors going, yeah, do it.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, and then just kind of, communicating with those neighbors to be like, hey, the food's available for anyone. If you want to take care of the plants, go for it. I'm not kind of going, oh, this is 100% going to be successful. It's probably just going to be a grand experiment, but, why not?
It
And yeah,
never
just,
hurts to experiment when it's with
exactly.
vegetables.
Yes. And it was, oh my gosh, I got 30 varieties of free seeds.
Wow. Where did you go get
Yeah.
free seeds?
So another community thing,
Yeah.
participating in my local urban farm, Cottonwood Urban Farm is amazing.
Mhm.
Both them, I feel like Black Thumb Farm. There's a couple different urban farms, which basically means it's a plot of land that might have houses or buildings next to it. It was just an empty plot, and they got approval to turn it into a compost place and community farm.
Wow.
So I highly recommend looking up one. Oh, being a part of my Buy Nothing community, also really, really great. There's also tons and tons of plant exchanges and seed exchanges online that I'm a huge fan of. But yeah, just those are community things that I participate in, and I keep seeing room for further growth. My kid and I got to take her to the compost place for the first time. I put gloves on her hands so I wasn't going to freak out about whatever she was going to touch. And
Yeah.
they asked her if she wanted to, do the work they were doing, and then they just set her up so she could get to work on the compost with them. And it was great. They even made it so she was doing like the sifting at one point and made a little bag that was just the good, rich soil that she had sifted and put together. And we got to put that on the plants that she's planted and stuff like that. And it's just, those are community things that I love and I adore. And I really feel like if you are present and showing up and just asking questions, people, if they're already creating community events, they want you there, they want you engaged. And just
Absolutely.
being, taking things a little bit slower and being more present can open you up for a lot.
Right. Absolutely. And I really appreciate the idea of building community by participating in community
It
by
is
what's
important.
actually around you. You
What's
have to
there?
participate in it to be
Yeah,
community.
and you don't have to feel like you have to create something brand new,
Right.
it is hard to find things sometimes.
Right.
I will say that. I kind of go with, it's so easy to just go like, okay, what's online or what is someone else I know already doing, which that's
Yeah.
always those both of those things are totally fine, but knowing what's already going to fit in what you're already doing, your daily life is also super important because it helps with the longevity of being able to be a part of that community. Composting might sound kind of nerve-wracking to get into for the first time. I definitely
Right.
know it was for me. I mean, any form of green living can feel like a huge steep learning curve. But I'm a big proponent for little steps are totally great. They are still great forward steps.
Yes.
Finding like-minded people that are doing the same thing you already want to do or already incorporate. And then things that are within a walking distance whenever
Yeah.
possible are always super important. I'm a big fan of, really paying attention when I go to the laundromat. Are there flyers for something nearby that I want to be a part of? When I was finding a new church, I wanted to find something closer to where I lived. And I'm really grateful that the church that I'm now a part of is also one of the big partners for the North Hollywood Interfaith Community Pantry, one of my
Wow.
absolute favorite organizations.
Mhm.
So again, the participating in things that you want to do that are kind of sustainable with your own living is like, okay, I'm already going to meet up with this home church. What events are they doing? Oh, it's going to be something that's right after church. Great. I've already kind of set that time apart to be with these people, and we're just going to kind of feed it into community events as opposed to trying to like finding a random day of the week. I
Yeah.
feel like that can be super helpful too.
So I hear from you in like an undercurrent current in what you're saying is that
Mhm.
you look for events and stuff that reflect your values. So
Yeah.
you're meeting like-minded people. And I think that leads in to our next question, which is like, how are you looking towards the future with your actions?
Oh, that was the one I couldn't journal on earlier, which is good. I was like, okay, I just got to deal with it in the moment with what I
Yeah.
find. How am I looking towards the future with my actions? Man, I will say, kind of going back to when I was pregnant, first had a kid, I was just doing what I could to kind of build up community. But even the image I had created in my mind of what community is and can be wasn't big enough, wasn't expanded enough. It was what I had always
Ooh.
thought community was, barely a drop in the pool.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And that has been a huge thing for me, being one, aware of it, two, knowing how important it is to me, and three, the realization of how exhausted I was and how much that made me want to draw back rather than leaning into the awareness of what was needed.
Right.
Because it can be
Right.
so hard knowing that you might be helping to sow plants of community and looking around and finding so few people doing the same thing. When it would be so much less work all around if we were all just doing if like everybody was doing 5 to 10% of,
Yeah.
community care, that
Hmm.
that load would be nothing. And it's so easy for us to just go, I'm already fucking exhausted. How
Right.
am I supposed to care for others? And I think the thing I've really been leaning into, hey, put your own oxygen mask on first,
Right.
but
First.
you still take the time to put the oxygen mask on the person next to you, but the
Yeah.
person next to you. The what can
Right.
don't just like throw that seed around. Don't just throw that care to the wind to just like, oh my gosh, anything and everything, which
Hmm.
is so hard, right? It is so easy to just, see the huge need everywhere and to not be intimidated by it. But
Right.
instead, yeah, yeah, just trying to really be particular in pulling my attention to what is needed around me physically, which I will go into the digital realm too, because I think that's really important as well. What is needed in my current proximity, in my current daily life that is a sustainable amount of care? Is it creating care packages to keep in my car and handing them off if somebody on the streets or somebody in front of a grocery store is there and needs a little bit of TLC. That's
Right.
something I can incorporate into my daily activities.
And I know
Um,
you've been doing that for years. Like it
I've
impresses me so much.
I have fallen off of it a little bit, but I'm really excited because my church is like, "Hey, let's get that going again." I'm like, "Yes, I it's so important to me to
Yeah.
be able to do something." Oh, along that, okay, another place of like just what's something that you can do easily in your own life right now, looking at what you have extra of
Yeah.
and going, "What can I part with?"
Mhm.
Putting that in your car and the amount of times that I have just gone like on a whim, you know what? We have multiple umbrellas. We
Mhm.
really don't need multiple umbrellas. I'm going to put some of the extra umbrellas in my car or some extra blankets or some extra jackets.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I have found a place for all those places to go because they are no longer in my car.
Right.
Somebody at just the right time, I had it in my car. I knew it was already there and I could just hand it off to somebody.
Yeah. A thing that
Um,
that my community has started doing is like when people have parties in a backyard,
mhm.
we sometimes have a table of like things that people don't want anymore. And so like they're free for whoever might actually need them. So we're like
I love that.
reusing things and gifting them to people that are our literal community.
My sister in her apartment complex in Brooklyn used to have what she called the giving bench. It was just this bench in the like foyer of her apartment building, and if you didn't want something, you put it there, and and then people just like came and took it. It wasn't like trash, so it was very much what
Yeah,
you're talking about.
not
It
trash.
was like not trash. It was very much like a I don't need this thing anymore, or I found this thing, or whatever. And then, it was kind of like you'd come back out and it would be gone if you put something there, or like, oh my gosh, I do need that. Yeah, I love that. I feel like that with the buy nothing community in general as
Mhm.
well. Very much the amount of times that I don't even necessarily think, oh, I have something to give away. I'm going to list it, but more often somebody having an ask, which is great. I love people asking for things and going, wait, yeah, you know what? I do have, extra disposable like latex gloves or something. Give me 1 second. Like, come on by. I've got them, just
Yeah,
whatever,
that's so
whatever they
sweet.
need. Yeah. Yeah, I think looking forward towards the future, very much trying to figure out what's sustainable, what's something that I can keep doing so that I'm not exhausting myself, or so when an emergency does come up and somebody, you know, does need somebody to sit with them, I have the energy to be present.
Right,
Uh
absolutely.
yeah, there's a financial person on Instagram, and I am taking a moment to look up her name because I love it's We Bravely Go.
Okay, yeah, I follow
And
that
her
one.
name's Cara Perez. First off, she has a new book, Green Money. I'm going to promote that because I'm so excited to read it. Anyway, uh, but one of the things I love is she budgets a friend fund. She budgets money to give to her community like ahead of time, right? Not just like
Right,
oh, I'm going to just mark off, oh, I donated this money or whatever. She purposely sets aside money in her financial monthly budget to give to people so that if, oh my gosh, someone has a surgery, a GoFundMe, needs a meal, whatever, she's like, oh, I already know I can do it. I can answer that call. I can help out. Being able to do that, being able to be in that place financially is delightful. But even if it's like $5, $10 that you're giving to somebody,
right,
it's
absolutely.
it's so good for our souls, like it just is.
Right. How
um
often could like 10 people giving you $5 like
Change
make a huge
your oh
difference?
my gosh, yeah. And or even like I've just kind of made it my thing now where if anyone I know has just had a kid and they're in my circle, I reach out and I say, "Do you have a meal train? Can I send you a meal or a food gift card? Can I
Right.
cover a meal, you
Hmm.
know, or whatever financial thing. The food is life, food is giving. Anytime you can just cover a meal for somebody who's in the middle of something wild and crazy going on, so that's one less thing they have to think about, is always great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think just being aware, and then when it comes to online, because I think that's the easier, harder place to just get overwhelmed because there's so
Right.
many things going on in the world. And especially if you're a wild and crazy person like me who has her social media, not necessarily my own presence, but being present in a lot of different places, social media wise, having pretty strong communities and not necessarily the same communities on Instagram, on Discord, on Blue Sky or on Threads or whatever kind of thing. And trying to really not just be quickly going through liking things or absorbing the content, but
Right.
trying to be present and being aware of, whose feed you are looking at. There was this one point where I just really kind of went through and was like, okay, like who do I consider my community online?
Hmm.
And that was really, really helpful. I'm a weird person. I have multiple Instagram accounts because of that. I have one that is just dedicated to my writing and reading community, which is great because then if I want to be focusing on my own writing and I'm like, oh, I need a little social media break, I can only go on that account, which
Right.
makes me then go like, oh, everybody here is saying go back to your writing. Okay.
I love a curated Instagram feed. I only have one Instagram right
Yeah.
now, but it is
It's a
like
game
very
changer.
curated
Yeah.
to like life coaches, positive people, astrology, and kind of like homesteading stuff. So it's
Hmm.
positive and I'm learning something and I'm reading
Yes.
about my values and I'm
Yeah.
like seeing people who are thinking critically, even if
Yeah.
it's on Instagram.
And along that line too, the amount of times I have to remind myself, am I only have so much energy and time, especially because I've got a kiddo.
Right.
Am I going on here to engage, meaning
Hmm.
being present? Am I here to absorb? Or am I
Hmm.
here to motivate myself to do something else? Like there's writing is an easy one.
Hmm.
The amount of times you're like, okay, I just want to be inspired to write something, but I feel, you know, stuck or whatever's going on. And there's all these thousands of ways to get into your writing, to journal about your writing, to do the writing. And there was this one piece of advice. I'm not going to remember. Yep, whatever. If I remember that book later, I'll share it too. But I remember this thing that was don't just sit down to journal about what you're going to do for the day. If you only have so much time to write, immediately jump into what you're writing. And I like to think about that when it comes to engaging on social media as well, because the amount of times I've gone, okay, should I be, creating social media content and realizing, no, that's not my calling. That's not where my energy is supposed to be going. As soon as I feel like I should be creating something or posting something, unless something comes immediately to my head, it's probably time to turn it off and actually go into the work I'm supposed to be working on.
That is a very good way to look at it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. I have a lot of problems with content creation as well.
Yeah,
And
I see so many people burn out. I worry, at least for my own life and in the
mhm,
present, it's just not sustainable to pursue. It would have to be very intentioned.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you here to promote, Aurora?
Oh man, community.
Community. Woo! That's the whole thing.
That's it. We did it.
We did
Done.
it.
I'm guessing it's promoting like what I'm doing kind of thing, or just like
Whatever you want. Like if you're
okay.
like, here's composters I love,
Oh
or you're like,
yeah. Oh my
here's
gosh.
books,
Okay.
here's projects I am proud of.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I already said for in-person
Hmm.
stuff, I think it's so important to look up where you live and find out your walking score.
Walking
That
score.
means walking score. That means what are the things that you can walk to? And then try walking to those.
Okay.
Find something that you interests you that you've never maybe you've driven past on your way home, but to actually take the time to walk. Walking your street, walking your community is so important. And we're talking like I think it's like a 1 mile radius is technically, the
Yeah.
walkability of where you're at.
Mhm.
Um, and it might not necessarily be that like you go, oh, I want to support all these businesses. I definitely have businesses around me that have like ebbed and flowed on, oh, I like going here, or I really should not step foot in here anymore. That's okay.
That's
Um,
okay.
that's okay. But knowing what those things are that you do want to support
Mhm.
and trying to make a habit of it doesn't have to be anything crazy, even if it's just like once a month. Like that's still pretty huge for a lot of people. And
Once a
sorry.
month can definitely be huge for small businesses.
It can be so huge. It doesn't necessarily have to be like you blow a whole bunch of money, but just doing that can be great. If you're worried about it from a monetary perspective, like, hey, if they're in your zip code, their taxes are also going to take care of the place around you.
Mhm.
Walking, you're also slowing down to really absorb what's around you. I'm a big fan of bringing a couple bags to pick up a couple pieces of trash. Even if you pick up 5 pieces of trash on your walk, that's huge. Oh, I am going to there is an amazing book that a lot of what I'm talking about, some of it was stuff I was already doing, some of it I kind of doubled down on, and some things I learned. There's a book called This Is Where You Belong, which
Okay.
is about making where you live a home. I love that the author who did this was talking about where she had moved to. And on paper, if you read about the place that she moved to, you're like, oh my God, you tried to make this your home. The author is Melody Warnick, but the experiment that she created for herself and her sharing about what she did is a fabulous. There's so many different cool ideas in that one, but kind of along that line, what are the resources, the things in your community available to you? Is there a composting place within a walking or short driving distance? Where have you gone to your public library lately? If the one that's closest to you isn't that great, the next one over.
Yeah.
When's the last time you went to a park near where
Mhm.
you live? Just all these things that kind of make you sit and be present where you're at. And sometimes, you know, it can be hard because you might not find a lot. There might not be a park within a walking distance of your home. The streets might be, I live in Los Angeles. It's a very big, bustling city, and trying to find places to walk safely with my kids so she can get some outside time. Sometimes you got to get a little creative,
Right.
but that also kind of leans into being aware of what are the needs. Is there something that just doing any of these activities sits on your own heart and makes you want to go, I want to change something? I know when I first moved here, just being so aware of the unhoused people around me was very important to me, to the point where, like we talked about before, just having care packages in my car, having anytime I've been on a set or in some event where there was extra water bottles left over, I always ask for them and have them in my car to hand off to somebody. Just anything I can do to just give a little bit of care for whoever I come across. Um,
Aurora, oh,
yeah.
you have one. Do you have more points? I was going to say that's such a great point.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah, even if like the one thing that you do is just like, oh, I'm only focused on this one thing, that can be super huge. And then if you know that that's what sits on your heart, finding other people that feel the same way about it, because once somebody else is doing the same thing you are doing, it always feels easier. It feels less like you're doing a Sisyphean, a
Sisyph,
Sisyphus task.
yeah.
Yeah. And we're gonna have a little guest here in a little second, I think.
Okay.
Are you doing pretty good? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
love that you're here to promote care just in
Yeah.
general. And I really appreciate that about you. I really appreciate that you came here to talk to me on Asteria's Convos about
Yeah.
community and building the future. And yeah, thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. Do you want me to send you where people can find me online elsewhere? What are you feeling for that kind of wrap up?
Yeah, list you can go ahead and say out loud the places that you'd like them
Yeah.
to find you, and then I will also put them in the text
Sounds
so that
great.
us who are poor audio processors can find
See
them
it.
written.
Yeah. Yeah. So I, again, I'm really big on community online as much as I am in person.
Mhm.
You can find me on Instagram and on Patreon at Aurora J. Culver. On Twitch and on Blue Sky, I'm Aurora underscore lore, Lore. And then I think it's Aurora Lore Reads on Instagram for if you want to find my writing or my editing. All right.
Okay, I
I
love you.
think that's the big ones. I love you too.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Asteria's Convos. You can find the links for this episode in the episode description. You can find me, Asteria Elzea, on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads as at asteria.elzea, and on Blue Sky as at Asteria Elzea. Spell it Asteria dot Elzea. Please leave a review on your favorite podcast hosting service. That's the absolute best way for our community to grow. Remember, your actions create the future. All my love, Asteria Elzea.